I went to Leverkusen, and the first day I was there, nobody passed me the ball. I'm like, why are they not passing me the ball at 16 years old? And he goes, why would they want you to succeed? That versus college environment, totally different.
Unfiltered Soccer with Landon and Tim, presented by Volkswagen. Volkswagen has long been a supporter of soccer in America and has proudly been a partner of U.S. Soccer for the past 5 years.
Timmy, we're back at it. For everyone's knowledge, we are recording this on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, we are.
You got plans tonight?
I am going to go to dinner, and then I'm going to be in bed because I have to be up at 3:30 a.m. for studio. So it's going to be more like a lunch than it is dinner.
Okay, fair enough.
We've got the kiddos?
No, kiddos don't exist today. We're going to a spa, getting massages, going to dinner. So I'm not a big fan of these made up holidays, but to get away from the kids, I'll do anything. So
did you get away from the kids when you were skiing, or you brought them with you?
No, we took them with us.
Are they any good?
Fun. Yeah, kids get good fast.
Yeah, quick.
It's amazing.
I'm scared to death to ski
because they're like, yeah, you are. Their learning curve is so steep. So like once they get it, bang, they go, and they're so good. It was good.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, bud.
You too, bud. All right, follow us as always, Unfiltered Soccer. Be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can follow. Make sure if you like what we're doing, leave a comment, review us. It helps other people find the show. You can also email us at feedback@unfilteredsoccer. Timmy, we got a special guest today.
We do. A special guest because so many of the topics that we want to dig into on this show and Unfiltered is what the people want to hear, and that's youth soccer and MLS and U.S. men's national team and women's national team. But NCAA Soccer is a big conversation, a big deal in this country, and we are delighted, absolutely delighted to have with us today the head coach of the University of Vermont NCAA national champions men's soccer team, Rob Dow. So honored that you are here with us. We have a 1,000 things we want to ask you and dig into, but no rest for the wicked because you had a newborn son during that NCAA tournament run. Talk to us. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. You guys are talking about your Valentine's Day plans while I'm changing diapers and going to bed early. So.
I think that's the best. I think you win.
I get it. Rob, first question. So I made a conscious decision during my career not to have any children while I was playing. You either made a conscious decision to have a child right during an NCAA tournament run or accidentally had a child during. What's it like when you are, I think it was right before your third round match. Yeah, all of a sudden now you've got a phone call from your significant other saying we're about to have a baby. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, we had plenty of doctor's appointments, like weekly. That's how it goes. And right after Hofstra, we won. We were actually hoping that we would host San Diego, which would have made the process a lot easier. Anyway, we went into the doctor's office on Tuesday after Hofstra on Sunday and said, can we do this thing? And then we're like, well, I think we can induce. There's signs to do that. But that didn't work. And I'm about to get on a plane on Thursday on Thanksgiving to San Diego. And that morning, my son, Russell William Dow, was born. So
wow.
Just in time.
Wow.
Brilliant.
So you actually did get to see, you were there.
Yeah.
And then you had to get on a plane and leave.
Yes. Which
I'm sure went over really well in your household.
Super popular.
See you later.
When I think about the University of Vermont and the heights that you have achieved there, I think it's always important to unwind that and start to come back a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about your journey in getting to the University of Vermont, because it doesn't always start at the top.
Yeah, I think I had some unique experiences of coaching at every level in the college game. NEI, Division III, Division II, Division I, junior college in my first head coaching position. But when we first arrived at Vermont, I think we were ranked somewhere in the 120, 130s in our RPI. And, from there, it was assistant coach, helped us get to the NCAA tournament, raise the visibility of the program in the national level. But over the last 4 years, we've done something that I think might take away a little bit of the Cinderella story. Be in the NCAA tournament each of the 4 years, advancing to the round of 8 and 22, round of 16 and 23. And so we were building something where we really felt like we believe the national championship was a possibility.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think it's hard. Um, what you talk about there is consistency, and when I look at the game of soccer, I mean, you could talk about other sports, but there's different mechanisms. In soccer, I think it's almost easier to just have an amazing season, the Cinderella season, and just win. It's a lot harder to consistently be in the
Yeah.
final eight, final four, because that's when, and I always use the example of Arsenal. Arsenal hasn't won a Premier League title yet, but they're finishing second, finishing second. Eventually, that's going to put them over the hump. It's so much easier to have this one-off success. I mean, the building part of it must be really difficult, though, in college soccer.
It is, especially when you get into like a tournament, so many members, like
Yeah.
with it's cup game format, and in football, we know that the margins are so small in terms of being successful at getting through. But I think like some of the momentum this that came from this season was believing we can win in all different ways, whether it was PKs, down a goal, a PK in overtime, coming back from deficits. Um, but yeah, like the building and consistency comes from like what your program's built on, and what we've had more talented teams in the past, but
Mm.
what we've always prioritized is the intangible talents of work ethic, resiliency, mental toughness, prioritizing the locker room, these types of things for the
Mm.
culture of your team. And this year we were the most talented in that area. We had eight
Mhm.
or nine guys deep, which were really, really top leaders in those areas.
Rob, can you help us understand? So we were talking before the show. My family grew up very close to where you're from in Nova Scotia, Canada, and probably every one of our listeners is like, where the hell is that? So far east end of the earth in North America is Nova Scotia, a province in Canada, and you grew up in Cole Harbor. My family grew up a little further north on Cape Breton. My dad's family from there. How does a person who presumably grew up with hockey and a hockey stick in their hand end up in the soccer world? How did that come about?
It was a really good question. I was playing soccer in the summertime to keep in shape as a hockey player, and somewhere around I was 13, 14 years old. I started getting a little bit better at soccer, and might have made a national team pool once when I was 17 years old in Canada. But I had this really great coach growing up. His name
Mm.
was Stephen Hart, and he was from
Oh yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago, and he came to Halifax from Trinidad, and he coached the senior men's national team eventually, for Canada and for TNT. But huge mentor of mine, and really in any like major step in my game or my coaching career, he was a part of it.
And did that make you want to then get into coaching? Is that how that?
I just want to stay in football. I wasn't good enough of a player to do it long term. But
Mm,
as a coach, you quickly realize it's not about you, and it's
Mm.
all about everyone else.
totally.
That was certainly a hard transition, in my early years. But you live vicariously through these guys, and it's the best you can do it until you're 70. So why not?
Rob, I think when we were talking about having you on the show, soccer junkies like myself and Landon and all of our listeners, take us inside the give us a synopsis of this season, right? It ends with a championship, but there are so many. You start preseason in August, and then there's all these highs and lows and peaks and valleys. And without giving us one particular moment when you just thought it was going to be an incredible season, take us on the journey of what those couple months looked like over the next couple minutes.
Yeah, look, we went into preseason. We do this trip every year to the mountains in Vermont. There's a couple turf fields on top of a mountain, which is really cool. It's called J Peak Resort. But no one's there. It's just the team. And it's funny. I got concussed the day before we left, first day of preseason. I got dehydrated, fell down some stairs.
Mm.
Non-alcohol related, I promise. Um, and I was concussed for the first 2 weeks of preseason, and so I had no idea what happened, but something was going right. Um,
That's
and my
awesome.
my my staff did a great job, but it just showed the amount of leadership and and experience that was in the group. But injuries, like we come off these really this long season of multiple seasons, whether it's our spring season, USL 2 seasons into the college season, and we really need to be conscious about, peaking at the right point. Well, we inherited some serious injuries in the team. Fortunately, we had depth, but if you look at the first part of our season, it was extremely rocky, whether it was a loss or, Western Michigan crushed us day one of the season. Um, and so getting through that, constantly plugging holes, which is super stressful as a coach. And then we finally got to the point where, okay, this seems like it's just going to be the strongest team we can get based on our health, and had some good results, but became complacent at that same time. And I remember playing against UMass. UMass had an amazing season as well. They're extremely underfunded. Um, and they overachieve every year in my opinion, but we played them at home and it was a really big RPI game. And we noticed that their top striker, Alec Hughes, was out for the game. And we went down 2-0 early in the match. And it's just like, guys, this is an opportunity for us to, I think, solidify ourselves in the national rankings. And we came back from the 2-0 deficit. We tied, had a really good performance in the second half, but enough to say, like, hey, this is what we're capable of in the
Mhm.
second half.
Mm.
We need to start games better. We need to hold ourselves accountable to that, and had a long conversation on the field for about 40 to
Wow.
45 minutes
Mm.
while all the parents are waiting in the post game meal,
Mhm.
looking to hug their kids. I was giving them the hairdryer. Um, but other guys stepped up in that conversation. My assistant Brad, who played for the program, told him what it meant to wear the jersey,
Mhm.
um, and was really honest with the guys that were not living up to it. This is not the standard. This is not what it's going to take to win a national championship, let alone a America East championship.
Mm.
Mm.
So coming off of that, we really ascended, into the direction where we raised the bar and held ourselves accountable to national championship performances.
Rob, can you walk us through? So you're talking about guys that you have that are leaders, and can you? A lot of people who listen to the show probably aren't super familiar with the collegiate world, right? They follow their professional team or the EPL or the national team. Can you walk us through how do you recruit players to go to Vermont?
Yeah, because
Right? I mean, if it
you have a lot of international players as well.
Yeah, like
right.
30 to 35% of our team is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would think, kids want to, they know if they're international, they know New York and they know LA and they know Chicago and Florida. But how do you get them, how do you convince them, I guess, to go to New
Mm.
York or to
Yeah.
Vermont? Sorry.
Yeah. The the initial conversation is hard, but once we get our prospects around our team, it's really easy. The
Mm,
Mhm.
the culture in our team is, everyone says a family, a brotherhood, but it's authentic. And when we connect a prospect to our group, um, our our current players are interviewing the prospect more than the prospect's interviewing
mm,
um,
love that.
the team. And
Mhm.
so the follow-up conversation is, do you want this guy as your teammate? And
Mm,
and it's great in our recruiting. We got to expand our network, and there's always a connection through somebody to somebody on a recruit. And we just ask, do you want this guy in the locker room? And I think we start building, um, a team that's wants to be around each other.
now, the beauty of that, Rob, is that you now if you do that from the beginning and you're not successful, people are like, well, you don't get to just choose who you who you want to be there. And but now that you've had success, now you say, okay, you don't fit into what we're doing, then you can go somewhere else and we're fine. We're gonna be fine.
I wish that was still the case at Vermont. We're still gonna have to recruit hard. I think we haven't signed. We signed one player, I think, since the national championship for the
Hmm,
2025 class, and we've got another 9 that we need to sign.
hmm,
Um, but the late game is our game, um, and which is great. Around the pro. atmosphere of guys getting released, whether it's here or abroad. But
Mhm.
Right.
that's going to work for us. But yeah, it's like you get them in your team, you get them around your campus. University of Vermont's a beautiful campus, it's a
Mhm.
great school. Um, but you play your strengths on it, right? So we're not in Boston, right? So we're not in New York. There's a lot of other distractions in these urban areas. Our team leans on each other, and they do everything together. We had two seniors, fifth year seniors, came back for the COVID year who bought meal plans on their own to be able to eat on campus with our freshmen and sophomores, because when they were freshmen, they came in the COVID world and weren't allowed to leave their dorm room, and they felt like they didn't have a connection with uh, their seniors. So they wanted to change that and get to know the group. And that was one of the things that I think bonded our team together pretty tight.
Yeah, well, one of the things I want to touch on with the COVID year as an example, but let me just give a big shout out to what you're doing. I think when I look at the University of Vermont, you're not supposed to be there, and I mean that respectfully, right? I
Mhm.
think back to a guy who I think is a brilliant coach, Caleb Porter, and probably a decade, I don't know, a decade ago, he did the same thing at Akron. Akron is a small program. They shouldn't be on a national stage. It's about UCLA and Maryland and Indiana, and he
Mhm.
turned things upside down. And I think what you're doing at Vermont and that what they're doing at Marshall, I mean, they're turning heads in a big way, because when you look at these schools, you're actually not supposed to be in that conversation, but you're pushing yourself not only into the conversation, but to the top of the class. So I think it's incredible what you're doing. I guess when you talk about and you give us the example of those two seniors, right? Fifth year coming back, buying their own meal plan. I see so many colleges, so many universities struggling to build um, that legacy at their school because of the transfer portal, right? And I think the transfer portal has amazing pluses and amazing minuses, right? One of the negatives is kids aren't staying at the same school for 4 years, right? So by the time you're used to having seniors put their arm around freshmen, they're not there anymore because it's a kid who's coming from another school. How important is the transfer portal to you in terms of bringing players in, but also how does it hurt the program?
Yeah, I think we hit success at our program's highest level in 2022 at the right time when the portal was really taking fire,
Hmm.
and so we got some top players
Hmm.
at that time, and we could have been on the other end, and we're constantly trying to catch up in this way to retain our guys.
Yeah.
But it's about the people, right? So it's always about the people, and if your team, you guys have been on plenty of teams.
Mm.
And do you want to show up and train every day with these guys? Do they give you energy or do they take energy? And when you can accumulate this group where the team can think of the guys can think about the team first, and themselves second, uh, then it creates an atmosphere where people want to be, and
Hmm.
stay. Now, beyond the culture standpoint, we're continuing to try and recruit experience and known quantities in the
Hmm.
transfer portal. But it's going to go beyond, or it's already gone beyond success. Now it's about money and
Mm.
into this NIL and revenue sharing world, which we'll have to exist in
Hmm.
here really quick. We've lost guys already in this recruiting class to offers that we couldn't compete with, but
Hmm.
Mm.
it's our decision now to either stand still and talk about how great 2024 was
Hmm.
for years, or continue the success and exist in this um, competitive financial world in college sports.
Yeah. Collegiate athletics doesn't exist anymore. It's basically professional Division 2, with some academics thrown in. So yeah.
And is that, Rob, that is now, this is an ignorant question, but that is really seeping into soccer as well now? Like players are getting offered money now to go to other schools?
Yes, you're not getting
Wow.
the $1 million,
Sure,
you
but
know, signing bonus as they might want to compare it to, but it's somewhere between $5,000 and $25,000.
Sure.
wow.
Which is significant for a lot of these kids.
Yeah, of course it is. And
Yeah.
to some extent you can't blame them, but what I like what you're doing is you're saying, look, you either want to be here or you don't, right? If $5,000 is going to convince you, then you can go somewhere else, right? But you're right. At some point, do you believe I'm using smaller schools in quotes, but not a not national perennial powerhouse like Vermont, are you going to have to now start playing in that game?
We Yes,
Yeah,
we'll have to
Mhm.
start playing and I think we're about to play in that game,
Mhm.
right,
We're probably a week fresh of starting to think of those ideas, and this
right,
guys, this is on top of a full scholarship,
right.
on top of a
Totally.
cost of
Yeah.
attendance, on top of Alston money,
Yeah.
you know, which is already, uh, 8 that's like 8 to
Yeah.
$9,000 of, um, money in which a student
Yeah.
athlete can pocket,
I just went through the recruiting process with my daughter. We know all about the Alston money when that
Yeah.
comes on the table. Well, listen, I think you're in a fantastic position to have that conversation, right? You've just won the national championship. Get all those alumni. I've got a dear friend, Mitch Decter, who played at the program, and I'm sure he'll be putting some money into the program. It's
Pony up,
important.
Mitch.
I
It's
love to talk to Mitch.
Mitch, listen,
Pony
Mitch,
up.
me, you, and Rob are going to get on a call. But I think it's where the sport is going. And as you said, if $5,000 to $10,000 is the difference, as Landon mentioned, of
Yeah.
keeping one of your better players, that has to happen. That's part of the business side of it. I'm also curious. I know a couple of your players in the summer play in USL League Two. Is that something you encourage? Do you want more of your players to do that if possible, just to continue to get high level games?
We do. It's great for our younger guys specifically, and I think we want to have our older guys playing, but maybe in teams where there's lots of depth where um, we can have a meaningful preseason. Where we're not just fully resting guys. But we've got a great team in town that plays at our stadium, Vermont Green. I
Mm-hmm.
know that name's gone around the country, maybe
Yeah.
world, about their philosophy and what they stand for and
Yeah.
social justice um, but like it's we our top players want to play and they play with
Hmm.
sold out crowds and
That's
the
cool.
energy in our stadium
Right.
is unbelievable for such a small venue. Soccer
Hmm.
really matters in Vermont, and that's
Hmm.
when you brought up Caleb Porter, right? When I
Hmm.
was a young coach, I was an assistant at the time. I used to love getting on YouTube and watching Caleb Porter and the passion, the energy
Yeah.
he displayed to his teams and the identity that was so clear.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's something I took from him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like there's a Vermont identity that is, um, I think unique, and we'll stick to that.
Rob, last few things, and we'll let you go. We know you're busy. We appreciate you taking the time today. Who were your, outside of Caleb, who were coaches maybe you looked up to, even if they were in other sports, or people that you either try to model yourself after or idolize?
Yeah, I really appreciated like Coach K's books
Hmm.
Mm,
on value points and non-negotiables and how you build a team culture. He's very clear and concise about how you do that and the communication in which you use within your team so that people can all quickly come back to points in which we all agreed to be at the beginning of the season. And it was really cool. I got a chance to talk to him probably a couple weeks after the national championship. So,
Wow.
oh,
What was
that's
that like?
awesome.
but as of now, like talking to you guys is definitely
I was
makes
gonna
me
say
get up.
we're
Yeah,
listen,
Oh
nothing.
my God.
yeah.
Rob, at the risk of the wrath of Vermont's athletic director, once you build this dynasty and win three or four more national championships, is there ever a world in which you want to coach internationally, professionally? Is that something that you see further out on your horizon?
I appreciate you thinking that that could be a possibility. Yeah, four more national championships, and let's beat Stanford's three in a row that they won. Later on. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it'd be an honor to be able to coach at the national team level of some capacity in Canada, whether it's a youth team or so forth. And I've done some work with U.S. Soccer and their scouting department, and but you know, um, it, you kind of leave me speechless, thinking about that. But I appreciate it, and
Sure.
uh, might need your guys' connections if I go abroad.
No, no problem at all. We have plenty of those.
I will you don't need advice from me, but I think a lot of times people get I've had a lot of conversations with coaches and young coaches, and you get caught up in the level, or the, is it a national team or is it in the CPL, Canadian Premier League, or the MLS, and you get caught up in the level and you forget about the important thing is that you get to coach in the way you want every day. And when you win the way you're winning, I don't know if power is the right word, but it gives you more and more influence to do things the way you want at Vermont. And that's really valuable, right? Versus going somewhere else. I have close friends who have gone up in levels, but they have way less influence over what happens. And it's not as enjoyable for them as just, where they were before at a lower level. So it's a cautionary tale, but I'm sure no matter where you go, it's very clear that you know how to be successful. And we're really grateful, Rob, that you took the time here. We are fans. We were all watching together at the end when you guys beat Marshall, and it was fun to watch. It was enjoyable to watch, and wherever it takes you, whether it's Vermont, like Coach K was at Duke for 30 years, or anywhere along the way, we're excited for you, and we appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, been an honor. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. It's,
any lasting words, Rob? Any lasting words that you want to leave with the fan base?
We're not underdogs. We're just dogs.
There you
go.
That.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
We're gonna pin that. We're gonna use that. That's awesome, Rob. Continued success.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, we're gonna take a break. Huge thanks to Rob Dow again and the University of Vermont, the Catamounts. We'll be right back with more NCAA soccer discussions right here on Unfiltered Soccer, presented by Volkswagen.
The Unfiltered Soccer podcast is brought to you by Volkswagen, the presenting partner of U.S. Soccer.
Since 2019, Volkswagen has been on a mission to drive the future of the sport we all love, and VW is committed to making it more diverse, inclusive, and accessible for everyone.
They're not just talking about it, they're out there doing it. VW's partnerships, programs, and soccer clinics are unlocking opportunities for the next generation of players and fans.
As a longtime friend of Volkswagen, I've seen firsthand how VW are connecting with fans and driving the sport forward. From working with them on clinics to being part of their incredible campaigns, it's clear U.S. Soccer is truly powered by the people.
Thank you to VW for being our presenting partner. Learn more about how VW are supporting U.S. Soccer at vw.com. There's a lot in life that feels like it should be guaranteed that just isn't. Your team winning the championship, the weather being good on game day, your friends remembering who has the tickets. Some days, you're a goal-scoring machine.
And some days, the ball just passes you by. Right here on Unfiltered Soccer, we know that no matter how much you love the beautiful game, nothing on the field is guaranteed. Thankfully, AT&T is introducing a brand new guarantee, the AT&T Guarantee.
The AT&T Guarantee means connectivity you can depend on, deals you want, and service you deserve. Or they'll make it right.
Whether you're in the stands, watching with friends, or just cheering from home, you can count on the AT&T Guarantee.
Learn more at att.com/guarantee. Terms and conditions apply. LD, I got to say, I really enjoyed Rob Dow. I think
me too.
He's humble. He's a champion. And one of the things I liked most about the conversation with him was he talked about culture and he gave us examples of how he built it. And it's amazing. All people want to talk about now in sports is culture. It's just like this buzzword. And literally nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows how to implement it. But then when you see it and you see someone who has success because of culture, like they didn't win because they went out and bought all the best players.
Correct.
They went out and won because they have, as you said, he brought these fifth-year seniors back who bought their own meal plan just to be around the freshmen. So well done to him. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, we've been around obviously lots of teams, and you know it when you see it and you feel it, where the culture is right, and you know it when it's wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like my first day I walked into the Everton dressing room, I was like, oh yeah, this is right. Like they know what they're doing. And how many times did he say, my assistants got it right, my seniors got it right. And he's humble. He clearly knows how to lead. I think the most important thing he said, when we recruit, our seniors are recruiting them and deciding whether or not they want them on this team or not. Right. And I can guarantee you, Tim, there's a lot of times he's probably had a top player come in and they went, not for us. Sorry.
Totally.
We're just not going to sign you. And that is so, like, when you can flip it on its head, because most of these, Bill Belichick right now is going into a 17-year-old's house and begging them to come play for North Carolina, right? Until he gets that right, which he will eventually. But when you can flip that and say, well, do you want to be here or not? You show us.
The begging looks different now. He's gonna
Totally.
be begging with a bag. You know, take that.
Totally.
Take that. You go count that. Me and mom and dad will talk. Look, I think college soccer has a really interesting, or takes up an interesting space in American soccer. Like on the women's side, that is the breeding ground,
Yeah.
right? Your 4-year breeding ground, and some are leaving early, but to get to the NWSL or professional soccer abroad. In America, for the men, it's been a little bit different. You and I, we'll talk about our collective routes, but we didn't go to college, right? And when you look at just this past December, Philadelphia Union traded all of their draft picks for the next 3 seasons to the Colorado Rapids for just over $600,000 in general allocation money. So even at the end of my MLS playing career, there were numbers that were saying draft picks mean nothing. The percentage of kids coming out of college don't make MLS rosters. And so, it's an interesting space that needs probably to revamp coming up soon.
Well, and it is, right? From everything we hear, there is some version. I'm going to totally butcher this, and so I don't even want to pretend like I know what's going on, but there is some form of a revitalized, revamped college system that is going to allow a European type calendar to happen. So it goes from August to whatever May. And for people who don't know right now, college season now goes basically August through December. Is that right? They finish in December. So they play 3 months a year. And if you think about 16 and 17-year-olds in MLS academies or in youth academies, they're playing 10 or 11 months a year against high quality competition. To play 3 months a year, you have zero chance to develop. If you're at college for 4 years and you've played 3 months during the year, that's it. You're way behind, way behind. And so U.S. Soccer has taken the lead on this conversation. We'll get more into this later, but U.S. Soccer has taken the lead and said, let's make an August all the way through May calendar and use college soccer as a form of semi-pro soccer that helps bridge that gap from an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old. Because around the world, Tim, you know this, if you're 18 and you're not starting to train, at least train with the first team, your chances of playing or being a real pro are way down. And if you're 22 and you're not playing, you've got almost no chance, right? So I think this is a positive step once it gets there. And I'd be curious if our fans know more about this, because we're kind of learning as we go here. Please let us know. But there is reform coming.
There has to be reform coming because what people on the surface at the top of the conversation want to talk about. When are we going to produce a world-class player? When are we going to win the World Cup on the men's side? And you can't even begin to have that conversation without going to the basic levels. You talk about you and I being at Everton, and underneath us there was the youth, there was the reserve team, and there was under 18s. Like you said, if you're in the under 18s and you haven't dipped your toe in with the first team, there's a good likelihood you're out the door. But the great thing about that system, Landon, is that's a Premier League club. And if you're an under 18 at a Premier League club and you don't make it, you can still go to League One. You can maybe go to the championship, right? And make a decent living for yourself. In America, because our system is set up as such, you can't. If you're 18 and you haven't really done much of anything and produced and you're at a certain college, that's it. There's nowhere to go. There's literally nowhere to go. And so it'll be interesting because I think it breaks up the traditional norm of depending on how U.S. Soccer scripts this, and we know a few people at U.S. Soccer who will hopefully get on and talk about it because it's a really interesting topic. But real big conferences when it comes to college soccer may get in that system and no longer be part of the current
part of the NCAA.
Yeah, I mean that's a massive transition.
Look, my overall take on this is whatever's happening and going on right now is not working still, right? And when people say, why haven't we won a World Cup? Why? I am always, Tim, the person who says, we are so young in this country. Major League Soccer is a few decades old. Give us time. However, as I start to see the last 5 years, 10 years, what's happening in MLS, fewer and fewer Americans in MLS, what's happening when kids come out of college, fewer and fewer college kids now going on to play professionally, it's not working, right? It's not working. So if we have to flip the thing on its head and see if something new works, I'm all for it. I have no issue with it. I mean, do you think a longer college season will ultimately then lead to more of those players being pros, or is this kind of pie in the sky?
Look, we need develop. Yeah, it's a hard question to answer, LD, because we need development, right? We need
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's still about the coaches.
when you said it. It's a mass. You get these kids get on campus, right? In early middle July, they start preseason, right? Because of rules and regs, they can't start preseason until August 1st, and then it's literally this sprint out of the traps,
Mhm.
right? For preseason, train as hard as you can for 2 weeks. You play a couple exhibition games, and then boom, you're in a 3 month season, and you're playing twice a week, and then it's over. And then there's Christmas break or holiday break. Then you come back and you're limited to 8 hours a week. Bro,
So
8 hours
ridiculous.
a week for I'm gonna get this wrong, but maybe a month or two, and then it
Well,
goes to
half of those hours are just you're just warming up.
you're warming up, or you're in the weight room doing
Right.
mobility, right? And so like you have to, if you have any aspirations of building a proper base and youth soccer in this country, and youth soccer can obviously be extended to college. You have to be training regularly every day. And these college institutions are, and it's starting to turn because of NIL. It was always about, no, 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 we're an educational institution first.
Mhm.
And I think we've seen there'll always be books involved, but I think you saw with Ohio State winning the national championship for football. That's a $20 million squad.
It's
It's a
insane.
$20 million squad. So anyone who
It's
tells me
insane.
that that's about education anymore, it's not. It's not. It's about business. So, yeah, I'm interested to see. It's going to take a radical change and a hard pivot on so many different levels in this country with soccer to make a real difference. Because we've been doing this. You said it's a couple decades old. It is. We've been doing it for long enough though to understand it ain't working. It's not working in terms of youth development.
I'm skeptical still that playing more or for a longer period in college is going to eventually lead to more professionals. But you have like what you have in England, and we'll use England as an example because we both played there. You have a very small geographic footprint,
Yeah.
but you have hundreds and hundreds of clubs, almost 100 professional, and then you have or league clubs, and then you have a bunch of semi-professional, right? And so there's so much opportunity for players, and I know he's the anomaly, like Jamie Vardy, right? Come out of nowhere, and we don't have that. We don't have that capability right now. We don't, and it makes it challenging because you get this small group of players who have basically been picked since they were 12 or 13, and all the resources have gone into those kids,
Hmm.
and then you just hope some of them make it, right? As opposed to casting a much bigger net, which this would do, and hopefully you get a kid who's maybe goes to college for 2 years and was missed by the system, who then becomes a national team player.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point you make is a good one. When I look at Germany and I look at Holland and I look at England, these countries are the size of sometimes small states in America or even like a bigger state. And then they're
Right.
having at some level a football organization. They're probably, like you said, 100 plus. Like imagine the state of New Jersey having 100 plus professional
Right.
teams somehow
Right.
somehow linked to professional or semi-professional. You're going to have, if you're any decent player, you're going to have the opportunity to be in with one of those clubs. And yeah, the geography has butchered a lot of this, the development in U.S. soccer.
What's your take? I know we've talked about this briefly on kids going into the portal and transferring, and I really struggle with it, but I also understand a kid who's not playing and this is their one chance to
Mhm.
find an opportunity. What's your take on that?
Look, I tend to I'm not all for player power like wholly, but I think it adds a balance, right? And when it adds a balance, then both sides have to get creative. But what I didn't like was, um, a young woman or young man going into a university at 17, 18 years old, and then for whatever reason, right? They either don't perform well, or they're falling out with the coach, or a new coach comes in, which we've oftentimes seen, and you're not that coach's cup of tea. They don't like your style. They want to bring someone else in. So either you just sit there and rot, or you transfer, but then you sit out. You have to sit out a year, right? This I kind of like, because I said NCAA sports has now become a business. Well, back up. It's always been a
I
business.
was gonna say it's always a
It's
business.
now become an acceptable, obvious, out in the
Mhm.
open business, and this allows some of these young men and women to navigate their own careers and say, like, this isn't a fit any longer, and I shouldn't be
Mhm.
punished for that, right? Because I always thought the opposite was true. When a coach is done with you and doesn't have time for you, well, they just recruit somebody in your position,
Yeah.
and they go, "You go sit over there." And you're like, "Well, I can't better myself anymore. I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm surplus to requirements." And so I think it hands the power back a little bit to these young men and women to allow them to kind of be able to control some of the direction of their career. Now, like everything, it has its ups and downs, but like I said, it's about getting clever. I know coaches personally who basically are like, I'm at a power four school. I'm not really going to recruit too heavily. I'm just going to wait for the transfer portal. I'm going to bring in all the best kids that fell out at UCLA and Oklahoma and these places. By the way, I'm getting grade one recruits, right?
Yeah.
And they're falling in my lap, and I have an amazing program. And they're building a team, a national powerhouse team based on the transfer portal. So it works both ways.
Well, not only a transfer portal, but they can also pay players now. So
Exactly.
what? So really, the recruitment, like you said, comes with a bag in your hand, right? Here's a bag of cash, and it changes the whole conversation. Versus, Vermont's a great school. Vermont has a beautiful camp. It's like, okay, here's some money.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it or not? But you know who's going to win, Tim, in the end? And this is always in life. There'll be all these different iterations, all these different mechanisms. Things will change, whatever. The people who win are the Rob Dows of the world because they create, and we'll talk about it again, culture where people want to be there. And ultimately, I learned this in USL, right, with San Diego Loyal. When we were with San Diego, we were a couple years, we were a top 6 spending club. Other years, we were, middle of the table, right? But we always finished near the top or in the playoffs because one, San Diego, right? People want to be in San Diego. But if you're offering a guy 80 grand and he has an offer for 95 grand,
Mhm.
but you can provide so many other things that will help them and you can prove that over time, they're going to come to you. And that's what's happening with Rob. And at Vermont now, he can say, look, like I said earlier, if you don't want to be here, don't come. We're not begging you. Before you had to beg, and he still has to do some of that. He
Sure.
alluded to that,
Sure.
but it allows you the opportunity to flip the script a little bit, and people like that will always win, no matter what changes around them.
Yeah, I mean, some of the so-called smaller schools will win out, right? Because the kids who aren't necessarily, who are at a Power Four school and they just can't get a sniff, they might go to a what quote unquote smaller school. But look, make no mistake about it. I know firsthand this when we talk about business, right? LD, it's no different, by the way, than LeBron James saying like, "I'll take a meeting with the Knicks, I'll take a meeting with the Lakers." Once I take those meetings, okay, who's giving me what? Like I know firsthand of a girl who's gone to 3 schools, big schools, visited the campuses, heard everything, and then gone, okay, I like y'all.
Mhm.
Who's giving me what?
Mhm.
And the biggest bidder won. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, and look, everybody values different things, right? So again, I'll reference Loyal again. When we would talk to a free agent, we would intentionally ask, "What do you value?" If it's money, just say it. I don't
Yeah,
care. If it's
totally.
money, just tell me,
Totally.
right? Like we don't have to have this like, I just care about the club, and it's like bullshit. Just tell me if it's money. For some some people it is. Some people grew up with a lot of money. 80 grand isn't going to change their life. So it's living in San Diego, or it's the club, or it's the ownership, or it's whatever. So as long as there's clarity around that, no problem. And if it's money, then just tell me.
And most of the time it is. And I look, you and I had a lot of phone calls when I was at Memphis 901 FC and you were at San Diego, and we talk about players and different things. And I can remember also a player coming into my office and saying like, "Tim, I appreciate you guys taking a chance on me. I had a great season, but like Indy's offering me 50,000 more." And I'm like, "Hey kid, get your eyes off the floor. Go
See you
get
later.
out that door and go sign that contract. I can't
Here's your
keep you.
ticket to Indy.
You don't have to be
Yeah.
upset about it." And so it's about the money, and that's where we are in college sports.
Yeah. All right. We will tie a bow on it with that. Going to be interesting to see how it unfolds because there are changes coming, and basically what a lot of these top Division I schools have said, or these conferences have said, is if the NCAA doesn't get on board with changing this schedule, we're just going to leave. Right? We're just going to leave the NCAA. So there'll be a power struggle there, and the schools have made it clear that at least in soccer, 3 months isn't enough. Like
Right.
they need to have a real season in order for these players to develop, coaches to develop, people to be more involved in the sport. I think it's good for everyone. So.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into your questions in the AT&T Fan Connection and talk anything but soccer right here on Unfiltered Soccer with Landon and Tim, presented by Volkswagen. So stick around.
It's time for the Fan Connection presented by AT&T. Every week, we invite you, the listener, to connect with us by submitting your questions. The best way to grow the game of soccer in the U.S. is to keep asking questions and keep talking about the sport we all love. At AT&T, connecting changes everything. And on USLNT, our connections with you will help grow the game. LD, everyone's favorite time of the week, including Jordan's favorite time of the week. Jordan,
JR?
get on in here.
JR?
Hello.
Yes.
Jordan, what do we got?
Jordan,
All
what
right,
do we got?
We've got some NCAA questions. So
Okay, great.
this first one's a little spicy, so I'm
Okay.
interested to see what you guys have
We like
to say.
spice.
This is via email from Brad. It says, I hear so little conversation about the impact that college football in conjunction with Title IX has upon other men's college sports. When a university has to spend the same amount on women's sports as it spends on men's sports, totally well-intentioned, by the way, and 60, 80 scholarships are given to men playing American football, we see the result. Major universities dropping men's non-revenue sports like soccer, swimming, and cross country. What are your thoughts about this? Would it be right to take men's American football out of the Title IX equality calculation, maybe create women's American football programs, or some other solution?
Holy hell, you said spicy. That was just
God, that was a bomb.
flamethrower.
Tim, go ahead. You have a daughter in this world.
No, I mean,
so-
look, I think Title IX is fantastic, and it gives so much money to women's sports and that empowerment. So, look, I understand the question, right? Because of that, you have the power players and the king, which is American football. It's king in college and it's king in the NFL. It's the most moneymaker by 1 trillion%. So everything then trickles down from there in a really good way. The gray part is that some men's varsity sports are getting cut. The suggestion that we take football out of the equation, okay, but then you don't get nearly as much money coming into the universities, right? Like that money's coming into universities through television rights, through donors and alumni, and they're just not, as Rob Dow just mentioned to us, they're not paying tons of money for NIL deals for the men's soccer team, right? And so we still need the football money, in my opinion, if there's another way to do it. And I certainly don't like seeing varsity sports get cut. That's difficult.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. The system's broken, right? Like we have to admit that, and very few systems are perfect. So you have to accept that as a starting point. I don't know this world very well, but I do see it. I have seen it. Lots of men's collegiate soccer programs have gone away, and it's just a byproduct of what happens. It's weird because in some ways you want to say let the market dictate what should happen, but the NCAA's mantra is to help all sports, right? And so it probably hasn't worked out the way everyone wanted, but there's enough creative people and there's enough money where there should be a solution. Like sports should not be going away out of collegiate schools. It doesn't make sense, right?
Agreed.
So I don't know the answer. I mean, that's
It's a great question.
It's an interesting idea, he said, to take football out, but I would be curious to see what that then looks like.
Yeah, I think the money drops. I don't know if there's even enough money left in the pot to keep.
Yeah,
teams
because
around.
who else? Well, college basketball, perhaps.
Sure,
right.
sure,
But
yeah.
then there's not enough money still probably to fund all these things.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's a great question. I appreciate that.
Great question.
And
Yeah.
very thought provoking.
Okay, I have one that's kind of more like a statement, but I want to get your take on this. So
Mhm.
this is from someone whose name is also Jordan via email.
Mm.
And it says, I feel like in a country like the US, trying to utilize a European style of youth development is going to be impossible. If I'm trying to get kids access to soccer, I get American soccer on TV, I encourage school soccer programs, get the coaches the licensing and training they need, and I make college soccer more intriguing. Try to convince a college soccer team to look more professional and turn Big Noon Kickoff into a men's and women's college doubleheader on Saturday afternoon.
Mm.
Lean into the American system rather than trying to copy the Euros. What do you guys think about that?
I disagree. It's a good point that Jordan makes, but we have tried every variation. Landon and I have been a part of this as young players and as parents. Now we've tried every variation almost of trying to create a system. And when you look at how the rest of the world operates, it starts with the professional clubs and then it trickles down. They fund and facilitate. Jordan brings up a good point. Get the coaching. The coaching, youth development coaching in America is poor, and that would be
Disaster.
okay. Yeah, so poor. I thought I was kind of understating,
It's disaster.
but so we still have to figure out how to get better coaching, and oftentimes when you can streamline it and put it underneath the Everton way, Liverpool way, Manchester United way, and you get these coaches. I mean, it happens all the time in Spain. Each club, and in Holland and Germany as well, each club has a certain style or philosophy, and you start that at the senior team that you see that's playing in Champions League, all the way down to the kiddies and the under nines. They all play the same way and the same philosophy. There's only really one way to do it to have success, in my opinion.
And we just talked about it. The NCAA as an institution doesn't care about soccer. And to be honest, they only care about football and basketball because it makes them a lot of money, right? Let's just call it what it is. So you can't make collegiate soccer that much better unless you have people who are invested and care about it, who are the governing body, right? Which is the NCAA. And, the challenge now with US soccer is that is the governing body. I think people at the top do care genuinely. The problem in our society is there's too many fractured parts of youth soccer in America, and there's no commonality between any of it. And that's where the problems are. When you go to Everton, it's all about Everton, up and down the system. You go to Liverpool, it's all about, and in MLS clubs, it feels that way too. But the Premier League as a whole, the governing body, is all about promoting the sport and making it better. In this country, we don't have people at the bottom who care about the sport and making it better. They care about money. And that's all there is to it. And that's just the way it is.
Well said.
So it's kind of like a catch-22 in a way, because like what this other Jordan is talking about is something that's more suited to a sport that's slightly more popular than soccer is in the country in terms of like the amount of money that's coming in at the professional level. Because
Mhm.
I mean, the NFL is just pouring.
Sure.
There's so much money in there compared to what's in MLS. But
Yeah.
then by the same token, what you're talking about is there's also a problem at the other end, right? For the youth and NCAA soccer. So it's kind of like, how do you
Correct.
solve both of those things at the same time?
Well, what George, he or she is suggesting is that we change the whole system to be American, right? And if that is how it had started here and that's how the rest of the world did it, it would be more accepted. There would be a functionality that would work. And in the women's game, to some extent, it does work, right? And now there's not the influx of money, but it does work that way because that's the way it's been. But that's probably going to change, right? It's probably going to change and go more towards how the rest of the world goes.
Okay, one more question. This one came from X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it now. It's from Gavin. It says, Patrick Ajamang made it to the U.S. men's national team, working his way up from Division III college ball. In your opinion, are college players overlooked or not getting enough attention from MLS? Are there any changes to the super draft that need to happen?
Yes, players get overlooked. What we talked to Rob about this, Rob Dow, and he said 30 to 35% of his players are internationals. What's the players that get overlooked are really the like Ajimang, like a Division 3 or an NAIA kid. Those kids get overlooked because those are some kids, and Tim and I talked about this before the show started today. Those are kids who were in professional academies till they were 18, maybe then tried to make it as a pro somewhere else for a year or two. But these are good kids, like very good players. Just because they're not as good as the top kid at Man City, they're not Phil Foden, doesn't mean they're not good players. They just don't get signed by Man City. But these are good players. It's less so with Americans. I think Patrick is the anomaly in that way. But there are a lot of international players who then, by the way, can still be signed by MLS clubs out of college and get green cards quickly, could also become American and Americanized. But yeah, we alluded to it with Philly. They don't value the draft, and that's okay because they have a fantastic youth system. But there are a lot of players who get overlooked. There's no question.
I mean, let's pull all of these things together. If I'm an MLS team, right? You and I are MLS owners, right? We own a team together, and we're trying to draft a player. It's not that these college players aren't good. You've been in the LA Galaxy preseason when college players have come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been in New York and in Denver when these college players come in. You're ultimately, LD, getting a 20-year-old player, right, who hasn't played a lot of soccer in the last 5 years. So you've seen it.
Right.
The player's actually, he's pretty good. He knows how to head it and kick it, get it down, play a pass here or there. But overall, he's not a very good soccer player because he hasn't had. So he's gone 5 years almost and played no soccer, like little to no soccer. He's played from like September to November, and then he's asked to come into a MLS team. Which, by the way, it's win now. It's invest in you. Why would we invest in a player who's already past his sell-by date, and we don't even know if we can develop him because he's 20 years old already? Like, does that start to make sense a little bit? And that's why so many, and MLS has tried, by the way. They've had the draft, the super draft, and ultimately the numbers are just like, this isn't pie in the sky. MLS overall, every single team is basically saying, we draft X amount of players out of the super draft, and by year 2, they're no longer with our organization.
Mm-hmm.
If every team's saying that, what's the point of going through that exercise? So, wow. Yeah.
Let's tie it back to the soccer collegiate landscape potentially changing. Mm-hmm. So in that way, as you're talking through that, I'm thinking, okay, there is a chance, because now if you're playing year round, but that's a starting point. The other crucial factor, and I cannot overstate this, is being in the environment of professional soccer versus college soccer. They are complete opposites. When you are a 16-year-old, and I went to Leverkusen, and the first day I was there training, nobody passed me the ball. And I went to my dad, I'm like, why are they not passing me the ball? And they at 16 years old, and he goes, why would they want you to succeed?
Yeah.
This is their livelihood. This kid's from Bulgaria. He has nothing else.
Amazing.
He needs to succeed here.
Yeah.
That versus going to a college environment where everything's fun and happy and we're bros and all that, totally different.
Yeah.
And so if you've been a 16-year-old in that environment for 3 or 4 years, you are miles better than a 20-year-old who's been playing 3 years of college soccer. Miles. Yeah. Even if you're not as talented, you're just hardened.
Yeah.
And you are a much different player.
Yeah, that's right.
Good job, JR.
Thank you very much. All right.
We'll see you later. All right, Tim. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Rob was great, huh?
Yeah, he was awesome.
He was great.
Real good interview.
I'm a fan now forever of the Vermont Catamounts.
Yeah, we got to get some Catamount gear.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Right?
Maybe by saying that, they'll send us some. I would love that. All right, guys. Thanks for being with us today. This was a lot of fun. It is Valentine's Day, even though you're hearing this a little bit later. So have fun. Enjoy yourselves. If you're alone, no problem. Find love, friends, family. Enjoy the evening. Remember to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Follow the show across all social media at Unfiltered Soccer for lots of bonus content.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Really appreciate all of you, and thanks to our presenting sponsor, VW, and our Fan Connection sponsor, AT&T. Have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see you next Tuesday with another edition of Unfiltered Soccer.
See you guys.